What do we call the Finance Committee meeting for Monday, October? We ready?
Yes.
For Monday, October 26th, 2020 to order. And we haven't done it in a while, but for tonight's meeting, why don't we do a quick roll call, starting with Dick?
Dick Vandenberg, Finance.
Carol Gogolinsky, Finance.
Howard D'Amico, Finance Committee.
Sandy Kuipers, Finance Committee.
Phil Landry, Finance Committee.
Let's see if I can. Heather Moore in Finance.
Okay. So I think the first order of business, Jean, would be for us to, well, we have Matthew here. And Jean, I know. Matthew, would you like to present to us a quick update on where we are with our budget and some of the items you sent us earlier today? No? Okay.
Well, it's all on the warrant, I guess.
Well, if you'd like, then we can jump right into the warrant.
Yeah,
All right.
it's up there, I'll go up there.
So we have a special town meeting coming up for November 14th, and I think we've got a proposed warrant. And has everybody got that available?
Yes.
Okay? Okay. Carol, you got it? All right.
I do, I got a lot of stuff here.
Okay, me too. So for Article 1, the fiscal 2021 budget transfers and amendments.
Mr. Chair, there's going to be one change to that. The civil defense wages is going to be crossed off.
Oh, okay. The one with all the question marks.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay,
Reasonable.
I'll make everybody's life easier. Gene's gonna sit back there and
yep.
peanut gallery this.
Okay. So,
So in those, where is it? Oh, there, no, that's capital. Where's my Article 1? Oh, there it is.
got it?
Different format. I think you've been through a lot of these items, correct?
I think that we have.
I have a question. What's the increase in the building wages of 38,908?
So, let me just go through. I think you've been through tree warden, nurse, highway maintenance, board of health, which is just a minute taker, correct? You've been through all of
That
those.
sounds correct to me. I know we've been through the tree warden.
Civil defense wages, we're crossing out. I'm still negotiating a renewal of the fire chief's contract, and that's one of the terms that we have not finalized. So we're just not even going to finish this before fall town meeting. We'll come back in the spring if we need to. Finance committee, that's your printing and mailing budget. Postage is self-explanatory. Building wages, the building official is departing the town to work in another municipality. The workload has grown to the point where a part-time staffer doesn't do it anymore. So every day he's here, he's doing the legal maximum number of inspections,
Yeah.
which is 10. He's been a really dedicated and capable employee. He's been working well beyond his budgeted hours in order to get all of the work done. We really appreciate that, and we've been trying to work with this employee because of his skills to find an arrangement where we could keep him, maybe by sharing him with another town and increasing the salary, et cetera, et cetera. We just can't get there fast enough. I am very reluctant to even post this as a part-time position. I don't think I'll get a good person. So I'm asking town meeting for the funds to make it a full-time position at its current salary rate. So it would be a management level 3, step 5.
Okay.
And that's the difference between the part-time salary and the full-time
For
salary.
full-time salary? Okay. And then I have a question on
What is the economic development coordinator?
So the way I would prefer to do things, we would have more time in between the September 12th town meeting and the November 14th town meeting. There hasn't been a lot of time to introduce concepts
Right.
and initiatives, and we've been reacting to a lot of what happens to us. We are very close to having significant economic development projects materialize in town. We're aware of all the land transactions that are about to occur, and we'll be off to the races with permitting applications and process. We'd very much like to have someone part-time, so that's the full ride right there, 14.2, somebody to run interference and make sure all of this stays on track. If you put that on my office or on the community development office, you're overloading people who already have a lot to do, because we're in the budget season. So we're going to start working with capital for a capital budget immediately, and we'll be doing our operational budget with budget instructions within the next few weeks. So we need this help, because I want to make sure that we don't get to a point where this committee's doing that, and this committee's doing that, and everybody's delayed, and everybody's frustrated. We really just don't want that to be the approach we take to business in town. We want one single point of contact, get me an answer, I get you an answer, and things happen.
Help to get somebody for that price?
I'm going to try.
Because it's not very much money.
No. But it's a part-time gig.
How many hours are they gonna work per week, Matt? Is it like 10 hours a week?
I think that's set up to be 19.
Remember, that's only part of the fiscal
It's
year.
only part of the fiscal year.
Yeah. But then, it seems like people that would be qualified to do that probably already have jobs, that's all.
Well, we'll post it and we'll see who applies.
Right.
If it's not enough, I guess I'll have to come back to the drawing board.
Can it be done as an independent contractor,
No.
the consultant?
Well, first of all, consultant would be way more expensive than that. If that person is working at our direction and has a fixed number of hours, I think we're going to be in an employee situation.
I think I meant Carol's point that if it's something that we can't find that spot, is there an ability to put it back out under a different structure?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Who would that person report to?
I want that person to report to me, because the community development office is one of the offices that needs to stay on track. So I don't want that person to be,
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you, trust me.
I don't want there to be difficult interactions.
Okay. And fire expenses?
Fire expenses, we went through the fire department's budget very carefully, and there has been one item that we decided that we needed to do right away. The furnace there is incredibly inefficient. It was set up wrong. So it's blowing through 6.5 gallons an hour, because it runs on high all the time, and it's a tankless system, so it's running just for hot water, for domestic hot water use. So we're spending thousands of dollars more than we need to, even with prices being as low as they are for oil. So we put a hot water heater in. That was 10,000 plus. That's above and beyond what the chief thought he needed in the spring. So I'm not going to penalize him for doing the right thing. I think he's going to save a lot, but until those savings actually materialize, I don't want to bank on them. We'll get the turn back at the end of the year if we need it. Well, we'll get the turn back at the end of the year, whether we need it or not.
Any other questions regarding any of the specific line items? Gene, when the article says raise and appropriate, where would it raise it and where would it appropriate it from?
So this is going to be part of the, raise and appropriate part of the budget. So it comes out of the tax, the state aid, new growth. And because our new growth was estimated at 125,000, our actual came in at $323,888. So we do have some room within that piece. If you total these line items, it's come to 143,328.
Okay. And I think that I'm looking for a motion to vote to recommend Article 1 to the town.
So moved.
Motion from Heather, second
I'll second it.
from Carol. All those in favor of recommending Article 1 to the town? Aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? No? Okay.
Matt, can
Unanimous.
we take a roll call vote because there's one remote?
Technically, yes.
Okay. Okay. So let's do a roll call vote, remote. Dick?
Okay, Dick Vandenberg, aye.
Carol Gogolinski, aye.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Okay. All right. The second article is to transfer $278 from water sewer expenses. I would entertain a motion to recommend that to the town.
I'll make the motion.
Carol's motion, a second.
Second.
Heather's second. Roll call. Dick?
Dick Vandenberg, aye.
Carol Gogolinski, aye.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Okay. Article 3, Personnel Bylaw Classification Amendment. Matthew, could you explain, is this part of what you sent us today?
No,
It isn't. Excellent.
because you didn't read that.
No, I did not. That's what I'm doing here. And that's what you're doing here.
All right, so sometimes it's a little bit of a curse having a law degree and looking at the way things have gone in the past and trying to reconcile that with what you know you should be doing. So we, the town of Douglas, have had a police lieutenant contract for many years. It was one of the things that Chief Foley asked for, apparently, when he was first hired many years ago, was the creation of a second in command. You'll notice that position has been very stable. Only one person held it for many years, and now he's the chief, and feels the same way that he'd like lieutenant. Then we added the assistant chief position to the fire department at town meeting. So there would be a second in command at both of the public safety departments. After speaking to Labor Council and reviewing the state statutes, we don't have the authority to do a full-on contract without there being some change to the bylaw. So without any authorization from a personnel bylaw, there is no authorization for a contract with anybody other than those positions that are listed in the statute. Town administrator, finance director, police chief, fire chief, and the confidential secretary of the board of selectmen. Those are your contract positions. If we take those positions and we say, we want to default to the compensation table and the personnel bylaw benefit structure, frankly, nobody would take the job, because there's a lot more responsibility associated with those things, and they are presiding over or supervising union people who have a lot more richness in their benefit structure and their compensation structure and their contracts. So we have to find a way to thread the needle, and what legal counsel has provided by way of opinion is that the personnel bylaw should be amended to allow for benefits above and beyond the personnel bylaw as they are called for, as they are required by being a member of the emergency response services, and then default back to the personnel bylaw and the personnel policies of the town when there's not such a thing. So I'm following his advice, requesting town meeting approve this structure for a employment agreement with the police lieutenant and the assistant chief in the fire department. The things that would be above and beyond the personnel bylaw are things that are related to being an emergency responder second in command. You're still going to wear a uniform. Your rate of pay is going to be higher than the top step of the union, but still going to be lower than the chief. but it can't tie to the table. We don't have a management level salary in this town at that level that isn't already maxed out or at the department head level, so we can't do that. Dues and subscriptions and the possible use of a town vehicle if one is provided. Now, the lieutenant has always gotten a car. The assistant chief at the outset will not. I have no intention of running out and buying a car just because it's an available benefit. We'll figure out what we need operationally and go forward from there. Are there any questions about that? Just as a side note, your police chief is recently arrived in that position 3 years ago. You've had a fire chief for quite a while, and you've also had your highway superintendent for a long time. It's important that lines of succession and the transfer of information from one group to the next group is done in an orderly and professional manner. So while it didn't require a change to the personnel bylaw, you will remember from our budget deliberations a couple of years back that Adam Furno's position was actually made right because he was the facilities manager on the management side, and then he was at the highway department earning an hourly wage. Now he's at a high step, a much higher grade and step as an hourly, but he really is the working foreman. He's the second in command at highway. So all the three big departments all have a clear chain of authority with somebody who's there in case somebody is not able to serve, whether because they're sick or on vacation. There's always somebody ready to step right in. I think that's a better management model for the town. So that's why we put it in.
I'm looking for a motion to approve this language or to recommend adoption of this language.
So just to clarify for my edification maybe, but for maybe people watching, all this really is we're voting to add wording to this, what do you call it, warrant that's going to basically ask if the town will vote to change the personnel bylaw so that the person who gets this position will be as an exempt person, not a union person.
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. But
It is a change. It's a cultural change. I think people are used, one of the loosey-goosey things about this contract as it existed was there's a provision for overtime and whatnot. And I've taken that out because you don't get overtime when you're in management. You just don't.
that's
You have to
exempt
maintain that
management
separation.
typically is not under union contract, so.
Right. And there's all references to the
Makes
union
sense to me.
contract have to be pulled out. There's an ethical problem having it in there. So we've done quite a bit of work. It's actually been a lot
Yeah,
of work.
no, it's good stuff.
All right, I'll make the motion to
Recommend?
recommend, that we recommend this article as a yes.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Carol's motion, Phil's second. Let's do a roll call on it. Dick?
Dick Vandenberg, aye.
Carol Godowinski, aye.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Thank you. So if I may, before we proceed, I have two gentlemen in the room here, theoretically, I suspect, to talk on one or more of the articles. Is that correct? Who do I have to my farthest right? Yes.
Bob Merrick, Economic Development Commission.
And Bob, what article or articles are you here to talk about?
Article 10 and Article 11.
Okay, what I'd like to do is we'll talk about those at about 11 o'clock tonight. We should be able to get to them. And the other gentleman?
Good news is I'm on 8, so I'm not much ability.
All right, so,
Mike Fitzpatrick, Capital Committee.
okay. I will entertain a motion to take Article 8 and then Article 10 and 11 out of order in that order.
I'll make that motion.
Carol's motion,
Second.
okay. All those in favor of taking Article 8 and then 10 and 11 next out of order, numerical order? Dick?
Dick Vandenberg, aye.
Carol Gottlieb, aye.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
So let's discuss Article 8.
Okay. Article 8 is for the public safety radio system. That also includes the highway department. Initially, it was voted on at town meeting to appropriate the $173,000. That was for, to replace the existing radios that they had. And then after evaluation was done, we found that that system didn't work. This is how it was presented to the capital committee. And after it was properly defined, the whole system's going to be replaced and updated with a microwave system and all new radios. We're going to have 3 different tower sites, one up on the Webster line, one behind the fire station on the water tower is going to be updated, as well as one place on the high school. And that's where the majority of the cost is going to be for that radio project. So that total cost came in at $754,500. With the 173 that was already appropriated, we're going to be at $581,500 for that project. And along with that is also the senior center flooring. When they first appropriated the money for that project, that was enough to cover it until they decided to do the project, and they discovered that there was asbestos underneath, which raised the value of that project. It is a safety hazard in that particular building. That's why the committee decided to recommend that project. And with the bids that they came in at, they need another $33,125 to complete that project. The total cost of that would be $57,125. Any questions on either one of those two items?
I have a few.
Okay.
Before we get to mine, I'll open it to anyone else.
Yep.
Is the adult social center the senior center?
Yes, it is.
No, it's now the Adult Social Center.
Oh, okay, that's the new wording.
Please.
I didn't know it was rebranded.
Okay?
My bad.
I didn't either, so don't feel bad.
Okay,
It was the Senior Center.
okay,
Everybody's so touchy over these small things.
okay.
I have questions on the radio system. What do you mean?
Is he all done with the flooring?
Yeah, I just wanted to know exactly where it was, so,
Okay.
for my own knowledge. And-
Downstairs in the post office.
Yeah. I mean, I do have a radio
Yeah, go ahead.
question.
Yep.
So my radio question would be, you tripled the cost of the radios, and they're now microwave towers that have to go in. Is that the added cost, is the towers?
That's the majority of the cost. I think that was like $484,000 of that particular cost.
And what will that do for you that regular radio systems won't?
Well, what they were operating on, 2 different bands, is that correct, Matt? VHF and UHF. So with these towers, it's going to work off a microwave, and then it's going to go back to fiber optics. Is that correct? And then be transmitted back.
The backhaul will be
Yeah.
fiber optic.
Yeah.
Just adapting to technology, basically.
It's all updated technology. The system that they have now is antiquated, and it just doesn't work properly. When they have mutual aid come in from other towns, there's an issue with that, as far as them being able to communicate properly. Matt is a little more knowledgeable on this entire system.
Not much. I mean, it's been an education.
Yeah.
So as Mike said, when we started off, we have 3 different radio systems in town. The police, years ago, attempted to go from one system to another, only to find out that their coverage wasn't very good. So they actually have both, and they cross-band repeat. So they're constantly repeating the radio signal over both bands. The fire department has been on UHF, and has difficulty speaking to the police who are predominantly on VHF, and most of the departments in the area are on VHF. So this past year, we went out and got VHF frequency for the fire department, but we didn't have radios for them yet that could exploit that. The highway department is on tin cans and straw, known as low band, which is even lower than VHF. It has the benefit of really having a lot of durability as a signal, so especially during the winter, they can hear each other very well. The industry is phasing out low band and not able to buy radios or repeaters to replace our aging units. So that originally the concept was, oh, just get everybody on VHF. Sounds like a great solution, right? So we priced that out. It was about $173,000 for new handheld radios and the radios in the cars that are called mobiles. When we went through the exercise with experts in the field, they basically said, but your problem is you're not propagating enough signal. You're not answering the fundamental issue of why somebody can't speak to somebody else, because you only have one broadcast location in town on top of the water tower. It's real good right around it, but as you get out to the edges of town, it starts to fade out. And so if you're on one edge of town trying to speak to somebody on the other edge of town, you're hoping you can reach the tower and that the tower will rebroadcast a strong enough signal back to the person on the other side. If you line up the three with microwave, your radio is going to, it's called voting, your radio is going to find the strongest signal connection to the closest tower, and then the three towers are going to simulcast your signal out so that everybody who's listening, who needs to hear, will be able to hear. And the coverage map now is much stronger and actually extends beyond the borders of the town to neighboring communities, so we'll still be able to get better signal. That unfortunately is expensive. Microwave, at one time, was something that communities were reluctant to adopt because it wasn't the greatest in misty conditions or snow or rain, because the signal would be compromised. They've gotten this down so that it's much, much more reliable. It's a very narrow beam. It's much stronger. We don't have to build any towers. So we're going to go up on an existing tower on the Webster line.
Is that one that's up
Well, the
there?
one tower on the school
The
level.
one tower in the school will have
Yeah.
to put about a 30-foot structure on top.
Yeah.
We'll need the school's permission to do that. But it's going to greatly enhance signal strength inside their buildings and around their campus, which you would hope they would want.
So are we going to win off that big tower that you can see in Webster right on the line, that big tall one?
That's correct. That's actually a cable TV, believe it or not. When your cable device, if you have a box at home, updates automatically, it's
Yeah.
getting a signal from that tower, a wireless signal.
Hasn't been so
It didn't need, it says
like
extra
that.
information, but
Yeah.
it's not a cell.
It wasn't in the email, Howard.
Right.
But the long and
That's why
short of
you
it
come.
is, I won't get into the details here, but at every step of the way, we tried to find an alternative technology, whether it was push to talk or simulcasting on a cell phone and a radio at the same time, and making those two things talk to each other. Every time we did that, there was a technical problem that intervened. Either the radios were super, super expensive, or we needed the broadcast towers anyway. There was no way around it. So this is how we arrived at this conclusion. Our quote has been provided by a statewide contractor who has firm prices on a statewide contract. So we feel confident that the number provided is accurate.
Will we be able to communicate with surrounding towns on this?
So it's going to make it a whole lot easier to do that. We'll be on the same band as them, and we'll just have to program
Yeah.
our radios.
Sutton has the same system
Yeah.
installed now.
You know, how about
Sutton and
Uxbridge?
Northbridge. Sutton, Northbridge,
Yeah.
Uxbridge. There is one department in Uxbridge that I think might be still trying to convert. Yeah, my mutual aid partners, it'll be a lot easier. So right now, when they come to us, they have to turn their radios off or their repeater blows us up.
So this would cover all of the three departments
Yes.
and the
Yeah.
equipment?
And, there's a couple, water sewer is a small department, but they're included in this as well. They're all going to be able to hear each other and talk to each other.
Are there like any fees for that tower that we'll be using in Webster?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
included, or,
No, well, this is the initial cost to put the system in.
okay.
And then there's ongoing fees for whether it's leasing the antenna, the periodic changing of batteries and things like that. We, on the capital committee, I asked all those particular questions, mostly for Gene's benefit, for budgetary purposes. Well, I'm just
Yeah.
being honest. For budgetary purposes going forward. But we put some effort into it to try to make sure that we covered all of these questions, so we didn't get to where we are right now. Have money put into a budget for a project that we couldn't complete. So everybody's very confident that this number is accurate. The radio contractor that put together the proposal on this, there's some in there to consider projected increases over the next year or so to make sure that this is a doable project for the numbers there.
So the tower rental is $800 a month, but that's all in, so they maintain the generator, they'll
Yeah.
maintain everything, that's just rent that we pay to be there, full service.
Do we pay rent for the water tank tower?
No,
We don't. Well, how do we get that for free?
I think there may have been a quid pro quo, it was before me.
So this means I'm not gonna be able to listen to the highway department on my scanner anymore, huh?
Well,
You
you
just
just,
have to, it'll be a different channel.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Other questions? Dick?
What's that?
Any other questions? Dick, anything?
No, I'm good.
I'm waiting for
And
Howard.
this will be fiscal year 20, this will be this year then, that we get this then, right? This is not 2025 or anything?
No, 21. So that's this fiscal year.
Do we have the funding for that?
Great leap for technology for town.
This-
So, Gene, could you, from there, address, so, a couple of things quickly come to mind when I see the number. I think in the 5 or 6 years I've been on the committee, that 614, 625 strikes me as probably the biggest number I've seen. I'm pretty unhappy to see it trying to come across at a special town meeting rather than an annual town meeting, where you have a much larger representative body of the town preparing to vote on such an item. I'm also a little unhappy to see it come across just months after we were either in this room or actually not in this room because of a pandemic and major concerns coming out of the town administrator about what our budgeting would be for FY 2021. My perception is this does not feel like, unless somebody can really articulate an actual series of emergency situations that have already occurred that make this something that needs to be addressed in November 2020 rather than May of 2021, I don't find this to be the appropriate time or forum to bring this forward.
Well, a whole lot of the assumptions that have gone into our budget conversation to this point, and it's good news, so we should celebrate the fact that we have good news, didn't pan out. So our conservatism building the budget was built around the revenue shortfalls of the state being passed on to the municipalities as a way for the
Sure.
governor and the legislature to balance their budget. They have agreed they will not do that. So they have backfilled us, so all of the cuts we anticipated in unrestricted general government assistance and Chapter 70 did not materialize. So we are not using any free cash in fiscal '21 to make the budget balance.
We are using the funds from the override from a couple of years ago, correct? The override that passed by just a few votes from a town that was very reluctant to pass an override because the people that didn't win that had a very vocal position that if it did pass, the town would be quick to absorb the money as quickly as it could and increase the budget accordingly, just like every other concern they've ever had over spending on a town's municipal budget. Sorry, that might have been an editorial. And I voted in favor of the override,
Yeah,
but
none of that makes any sense. So let me finish.
Pardon me?
And you'll hear the story.
That hurt.
We have been saving money with savings initiatives in the operational budget in order to be able to turn money back and preserve the extra resources the override made possible. The override was designed to keep the town afloat with its existing service profile for 5 years by generating enough free cash in the first 2.5 years to sustain your ongoing operations in years 3, 4, and 5. That was the financial objective. We've saved enough money on the operational side to actually take that and put it out well beyond year 5 and build free cash from one year to the next. So we rolled a positive balance forward of $1.1 million from last year to this year. And then this year's certified free cash was higher still. Some of that was one time. But in other words, you are now close to $2.725 million ahead of where we thought we would be when the override passed.
And I appreciate all that hard work you've done, and I respect what you've just outlined. I guess then I would go back to where I was headed next, to Gene's numbers. And I know Gene would not feel comfortable without being able to give us specific numbers. But right to your point, what was the 2020 free cash number certified?
$1,551,312. That was, I'm sorry, that was going into 2020, so certified as of the FY19 closing.
Is that the last one you've been able to
That was
certify?
last year. The one we just certified,
Yeah,
which would be the close of FY20,
sure.
was $2,725,870. And as Matt said, there was a balance brought forward that we did not spend, so that became the beginning balance to free cash being certified. So we did not spend $1,410,157 out of FY19 certification.
So I will concede that in the years I've been on the panel, it strikes me that that's the first year I've heard you give a number for certified free cash that had a 2 at the beginning of it.
That is true, but
Yeah.
remember, typically we
And
have
that's
a...
to the point you made.
I want to tell a little bit of the story, and there is a discussion for free cash later. Don't want to spoil it word. We did not have a transfer, we didn't need a transfer for snow and ice,
Right.
which helped. We did not have the annual town meeting at the time we typically have it. So usually we have an annual town meeting in May. The capital article is presented as part of that annual town meeting. But because that town meeting didn't happen in May, and because of the time constraints for the September town meeting, this is the first time you're seeing a capital budget for FY21. So that is unusual. And to your point of the timing, I think the capital committee, and I don't want to speak for them, but my understanding is they were aware, they didn't want to push anything forward and rush it. So they put the 2 projects that had funding previously, but were not completed because they had nuances that just, through research and through, starting the project, they felt they were important enough to put forward at this town meeting, knowing that they had initial funding and the town supported them. So one of them was the flooring of the senior center, because they wanted to start that project, and because the building is now empty, when they found asbestos, they felt it was a good time to add to that funding to be able to do that flooring project while the senior center is vacant. And the second one was the radios.
I just want to know, she called that the senior center?
Twice. Yeah, I noticed, Phil.
So,
Bill, I'm just as surprised as you are.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
Are you offended?
I may be a little offended.
As I get older, I'm more offended.
You may be a little offensive.
But when people think senior center, they think line dancing. An adult social center would reflect the age group that is currently there, which may very well be listening to Led Zeppelin and AC/DC.
Gary.
I apologize.
That's all right. So can I go back, and maybe this is a question for Mike, maybe it's for Gene.
Lots of
Would
answers there.
this request have been put forward in the May 2020 town meeting if we had had a timely town meeting? Was this the top set of priorities coming through this committee for this past May?
I don't want to,
I had agreement with Matt, and I would disagree with Gene, only from the standpoint is we didn't have it properly spec'd out at that
Fair
point.
enough. Sure.
So-
the other thing was, that I wrote a lot of memos about this. We were
Right.
holding on to free cash in case the state cut us. 'Cause that
Right.
was
Sure.
gonna be
Right.
how we were gonna
Sure.
fix it. So when they didn't cut us, and we had a good certified result, and I think it's timely to draw attention to the bottom of the page. We also looked for projects that have closed out that still have a balance, to ask town meeting to take funds they've already paid in taxes to go towards offsetting the cost of this radio system.
But they would otherwise go back to free cash. That's kind of an accounting event.
No.
Where would those funds go otherwise?
The way I,
She's got you covered on this, good.
Wow.
Good, Gene, get him.
I want to go back to my point. I think these projects would have been put forward based on the merit had we had the funds. So I think the capital project, and that's how I answered yes, Mike, so.
Yeah.
Anything is a pay-as-you-go capital. So anything that we transfer from free cash or we do as a capital project and it's over $100 and the project has been closed off, I hold and carry forward until we have another capital project. So.
I understand.
It's like items. So
You're not getting it.
I don't.
I get it.
No, you're not getting the money.
Right.
So
Nothing, Gene, I didn't say it.
the total free cash requested is 438,856 and a quarter.
I did see that.
So
Yeah.
that's what, we're trying to be really efficient about this, because all these projects have closed. They're gone.
So I think that my reservation, so let's go back to my initial concern. Is there anything that's happened live that has had a dramatic impact based on this system so that there is a perception it cannot wait until a more representative part of the town would vote on it next May?
Are we talking about the radio project or
I
both?
think primarily the radio project.
Okay, primarily. So from the presentation that was put forward with the fire chief and the police chief on this project, it's only a matter of time before they do have a major catastrophe with this system. And from a public safety standpoint, I don't think you should necessarily wait for that to happen to justify putting this forward. You have 3 different systems like Matt explained, one of them being that low band system, and you have 2 major employees of the highway department that are a viable part of the fire department. You need to be able to get a hold of them. If they're down at Wallem Lake, down at the terrace, or down the state forest, they don't have coverage down there.
But they can still get a hold of each other.
Okay. Well, you asked if there was a, no, I know, but you asked if there was a catastrophe, and I don't think that you could really justify it waiting for an emergency like that to
No, I don't want to
happen.
say, I don't want to do it until they're.
What is, I guess, better question would be, is it, what possible catastrophe could happen?
Well,
What risk is there not, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm all for public safety,
Well,
number one thing. But
if you
what
need the
possible
ambulance
catastrophe-
and they can't get a hold of the guy because he's down at Wallem Lake, would that be an emergency for you? I'm just,
Yeah.
if you want to put it in a personal perspective. That's what,
I wonder.
this is a situation where it is a concern. If you can't properly communicate throughout the entire town, this is something that's been Band-Aid over the years, from what I understand through the presentations and stuff that's come before the capital committee.
We've had incidents where both services,
Right.
I'm not in the business of alarmism in public service. I don't want to justify spending by making everybody afraid. But I will tell you that we fail the public safety radio redundancy and resiliency requirements. We are not 95% reliable 95% of the time. We are not. So we have had incidents where a police cruiser and the fire chief both got to an event, and one of them had to serve as a radio relay for the other back to dispatch because their radio wouldn't get back to dispatch. We have had a situation occur where, and I think probably the biggest exposure, in my opinion, is we are not adequately served with ongoing maintenance and awareness of the system. We don't have a resident radio expert in either the fire department or the police department. We have people that are knowledgeable, that can fix something that's right in front of them, but they don't have a system awareness. So we were in, it was the first time I had ever heard it.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to get done. I was going to bring it up. But go
Well,
ahead.
you go
No,
ahead,
you can have it. I thought he was going to fall out of his chair because we had the Marcus Group is the company that did the presentation for the radio system. And Matt's sitting over there and they're going through the whole thing and he's thinking about whatever he's thinking about. And then all of a sudden he realized what they said. There's no emergency generator tied into the end, that monopole that's on the water tower
For the fire service.
for the fire service. That's a big problem. If we
They're not
had
on
lost
frequency, so
power.
they're not repeating there.
And that's
So
just,
there
that's
have
just
been
a small example of some of the problems that are in there.
I think the other thing is, I think sometimes there's a couple of things you can do. It's apps on your phone, Broadcastify is one, 5.0 radio is another. And you can tune into Northbridge and area radio and listen to the operational, not the operational channels, you can listen to the transportation channels, the initial dispatch, initial response, and the organization of resources. Once they're on scene, they switch channel, you can't hear it. But it's hard for me to summarize all the times I've heard people say, come again, repeat that, can't read you, and they're in the midst of trying to go someplace, trying to get a clarification on an address or a situation, and they can't hear each other. So that's, that's dribs and drabs. It happens enough where it was definitely on my radar screen. We started working on this about a year and a half ago. That's why we got it on that May warrant, and then that's why we're trying to push it now, because we want to be building in May, not asking for the money in May.
So where is the special town meeting going to take place?
Field
Against
somewhere,
my-
right?
I would.
It's outdoors, isn't it?
Yes.
But we're going to be outside.
November 14th.
I'm going to be dressed like Nanook.
It's
Yeah.
still during a third spike of the pandemic. And how many voters did we have on the field in September? Did we have something like 64?
7, 8.
Maybe 70, 80.
Out of a population of about 8,600. And we had a pretty thorough
Was it-
debate about the $90,000 appropriation for the fire department. And that was a split vote.
So,
Well,
Yeah.
go ahead, because I think I'm going the same place. We have technology, like, we're doing it a Zoom here. Can't we utilize technology rather than making, I'm just gonna say, our population is going to be at a risk being outside if the temperature is not a good temperature to be outside. We have technology. Let's utilize technology to the best of our ability.
I think the meeting's already been decided, right, where it is
Yeah,
and
I think
everything?
that's-
So it's great, I agree with your comments, I just think that's a discussion we can't have right now, it's just gonna, a
We do it
wormhole.
in the car.
That would be
My-
with the moderator.
It's just a wormhole.
My
Let's talk
concern
about the
is
fire
we're-
department.
we're going to have about 25 to 30 voters
Yeah,
vote for a town of 8,600 people on a $614,000 appropriation. I just don't see that as our role as this small committee, or I see it as our role as
Yeah.
this committee to take the voters, we're recommending something, or not recommending something. So I'm open to a motion, or if there's more discussion. More discussion, anyone?
yeah, I tend to agree with you, Howard, on this because of the fact that this is a lot of extra money right now, and I don't I don't feel like someone's saying to me, this is a fire drill. We have no system for this.
And I get the point.
And
that-
it's not an emergency. In other words, we could have the people
I don't wanna be
voting
the one
for
who
it
needed
in the spring.
January, and it wasn't there, or like you said, the 6-month backlog of building it because we waited.
Yeah.
But it also feels like something that's a big line item for a town that clearly has a segment that is far more fiscally conservative than what the town might want to do for what it believes to be good town purposes. And ultimately, those are still votes of the town people than 15 or 20 people on a Saturday in mid-November outside. But I've got where I think I'm going to vote, but I'll entertain a motion either way.
I have another question. Are we presently using that tower in Webster?
No.
But how much is this gonna cost us? We're talking $100,000 a year to use that tower?
No.
No, 10,000.
Way under, I
Yeah.
thought you said 8,000.
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay, all right, that's.
10,000 a year, maybe.
All right.
That's a big decimal point, isn't it?
No, it was a big one.
You would recommend something like that.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
price it's gonna tower in
Yeah.
billion tower. Okay, because we do have land there.
Well, during our process of talking about this project, the gentleman that set up the radio project, he's retiring or has retired or something, the old system that's there that he's been keeping together over the years.
Was that Jim Bezina?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not into spending a bunch of money, don't misunderstand me at all.
Get it, I appreciate
And it took a little bit to convince me to even agree to this to start with. So I went through the same pains and thought processes that you're going through, or the committee's going through.
On a vote
But-
next May or next late March, early April, I would be likely to strongly recommend it. I can see the need,
Yeah,
I
well-
understand how these things hit to the top and we're ready and we
Yeah.
sound like we've got the availability. I'm just really concerned on this big a number, on that, probably the smallest town meeting populace will ever have, given the circumstances, well, since 1883.
Howard, I have a question.
Sure.
So if we were, this is for the people who made the proposal, if we were to simply table this until the annual town meeting in the spring, would we be in any danger simply by sticking with our current technology?
Well, that's the problem in your mind, Howard. That's the problem, is you don't know that answer. It could last 10 years, who knows, but it could
Right.
last
It's a risk.
a shorter period of time. So
It hasn't hurt us yet, but it's a
it's
risk.
gotten to the point where the public safety officials are concerned with this. It's not a case of a new toy, it's a case of a new tool. They need to get it so they're better equipped with what they have to do their daily job.
I'm also worried about what is next year financial numbers going to bring? And I know that nobody knows that or has that crystal ball, but there's risk out there right now.
I guess I have a partial answer to that. Next year is going to be pretty solid. Next year is going to be a good year. We're selling pieces of property all over town. Getting another appraisal report tomorrow. I know what it's going to say. I know that it's a lot more than I expected it to say. And I know the buyer's going to buy it because you can't do this project without. We've got 3 lots down on Wallam Lake Road that came into the town's possession through tax that are going to go up for auction. They've all perked. So we went out and did the research to sell them as buildable lots, not as raw land with no knowledge of what we're selling. Our budget, if you recall, Howard, we kept some of the fiscal conservatism in the operational budget, so we held back the police lieutenant for 6 months. We cut the expense budgets of the departments by 2.5%. We were showing a
Yeah,
surplus.
sure, yeah.
So I'm actually, that and the project, if it comes online, just one of several projects, if were to come online, would be a big boost. Maybe it doesn't show up in new growth until a year after next because it's a big project. But I think the town's fortunes are excellent and we've gone way to the positive in terms of being able to control expenses and things like health insurance, and our energy consumption and everything is down, down, down. And that's, in a way, when we did the 5-year projection for the override, we at that time budgeted a worst-case scenario for health insurance, that we were gonna have double-digit or 8% increases year over year for every single year. And now we're doing 1.4, 2.
Right.
And so that translates into $200,000 a year that we thought we had to spend on something that we didn't.
I want you to understand, my concern isn't the merits of the piece itself.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's regarding the number of folks that would vote. And to Matt's point, even in September, even last spring, we were talking about, changes, right? We talked about the increases for the teachers and the people in the school system, and having to hold back increases because we were concerned about our budget numbers. People took a hit or didn't get an increase because they took one for the town.
We didn't do, and I'm still wedded to the idea, so I'm still gonna push as far as I can with it. We didn't do the adjustment of the comp table to get the growth of that personnel budget in line with the revenue growth of the town. That's still a worthy project and should go forward. In fact, it would be on my next list of things to apply free cash to it, because it will, for the long haul, put the town in a much stronger financial position to have predictability every single year. Your revenues will grow as fast as your costs. You make a salient point that obviously democracy is better the more people vote, because then you have a better sense that the people shouldering the burdens have all conceded to it. The fact of the matter is, a quorum for Douglas Town Meeting, even in the spring, is 15. If 15 people get together, they can make the decision. You publish the public meeting and give people the opportunity to come or not come. I've never been on board with the outdoor thing. I know people are nervous and don't want to be inside, but I just, at the end of the day, some things have to go forward. And the financial management of the town, this town meeting, we're a town meeting town. We have to have town meeting. So it should be inside, this is my thought.
So Dick, to follow up, Carol, if I may, just to follow up on Dick's question, keep in mind that our vote, that may or may not table it or vote not to recommend, wouldn't affect whether or not the town at the special town meeting goes forward with the article. It would just be that at that special town meeting, there would be a read or somebody to make the pitch to say why the finance committee itself said, wait till May or something like that. But I would presume that the article itself at the moment is scheduled to go forward. Our vote wouldn't impact whether it goes forward. Carol?
I guess this might be a little off of it, but when you're talking about the budget being in great shape with the town and everything, I don't think that's the part we're concerned about. We're concerned next year about what's coming in from the state, because they're not selling lottery tickets, they're not getting sales tax in, they're not getting, all over it. This state, is going to be bleeding so bad.
And then add to that the condition of our roads. What was the price tag on that? 13 mil?
If you did everything all at once.
But it's still, and that didn't even include all of it. So we've got a big thing lurking.
These are all the reasons why you gotta right
Right.
the ship and get it going in that direction, so that you don't have to ever borrow to do the stuff. Do it without a free cash that you generate.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. You talk about the low turnout in this particular meeting, and with everything that's going on with this pandemic, doesn't look like there's any quick end in sight. And I'd be surprised if the Springtown meeting would be much different. With this particular project, we're fortunate to be, as a town, to be in the position we are right now financially, okay? So if you table this and you put it off until next year, right? If you look, We have a whole list of other
Yeah,
items.
I get
that
it.
are- No,
I
no,
get
no,
it.
no, I get it, but let me finish out. You have a roof that's on this building that's continually leaking, okay? It's spring and fall, go up there and patch it and hope that it's going to get through to the next patch. We've already had an insurance claim. I happen to be on building and facilities too, so I know some of this other part of the puzzle. You already had an insurance claim up there. We didn't replace the roof. If we have another insurance claim or it's catastrophic and it's a huge leak, they're not going to pay it. So this is going to have to be addressed. That's on the fiscal year 2022 budget. So all we're doing, we're putting off the inevitable. You're going to have to address it at some point. I'm not up for spending all this money. First thing I asked Gene, how are we going to pay for this stuff?
Right.
I'm not baffled by the number, it's a number. But you still have to understand how it's going to be paid for. I think we're in a position to pay for these particular two projects. That's why only these two projects are on that. Now, starting December 2nd, I believe it is, we're going to start working on the capital and going through all these things. And I'm looking at them, probably not as close as you, but I'm looking at them pretty close and asking what's this for and how come this number's this? I made Marcus Group, I wanted a whole menu of what all our associated costs are with this particular radio. So we knew what it was, not just, all right, let's buy this thing and then find out that it's going to cost us $500,000 a year to run it. I think it's an important project, and that's why I supported it at the capital meeting. So I don't know what else I can say to you to explain where I stand.
Do we have to pay software fees for this or anything, like some of the stuff we have to pay?
There's no software fee. About every 4 years, you're gonna have to replace the computer. So whatever came up, $2,400.
Right, yeah.
So we're not paying these fees to use it?
No, I mean, it's 6 of one, half of the other, in the sense that we pay big fees for IMC, which is the software that runs the police dispatch. There are all sorts of bells and whistles. But we don't replace the core software. But it's all about how the company wants to make its money, whether it's making its money from your fee every year or making the money at the installation.
I was just wondering if there was some extra cost, because I know we used to have the two-way radios. Once you bought them, that was it. They worked, you didn't have to pay any more money, just maintain it. In fact, Bizzini used to maintain ours as well.
Did finance, and this is, I've been here for a year or half a year, did you guys ever have a presentation on something like this to explain the technical ins and outs and what the threats were, what the response, the risks were? And the only reason I'm saying is it's $750,000 at the end of the day. And normally I would say, whoa, shouldn't we have an actual 15-minute presentation on exactly what this is, how it's going to benefit us, and I'm not taking, I take your word in it, and I am a big public safety person. I care about it 100%, but I'm also like, holy cow, this is a lot, and we're just getting thrown at this today. So it's a lot to decide on, and considering all of the situations that Howard's talking about, I'm like, it would be great to get this kind of formalized a little bit.
Well, I think,
Back in 2019, there was all the conversation that went into supporting the 173,000 initial outlay. It was a discussion of the
Yeah.
individual events.
I think the concept to me, Phil, has been, the Capital Improvements Committee does their work and puts their time in like we put our time in, and I typically defer to their work and their perception of priorities, and as they come, you got your 15 minutes, you can have 15 more tonight, but this is how it comes.
Okay.
I think that I get your point.
Just
It's kind of a
my
sticker shock,
novice understanding of the process.
But you defer to their work, their
Yeah.
hard work.
No.
What we did
I
on the
agree.
capital committee is we actually had Marcus Group do a complete
Yeah.
presentation
Yeah.
for us to explain the whole thing. Just so you understand my background, I run a business. I have for the last 30 years. So
Sure.
Everything I do is, you have to justify the number to me and to make sure that it's all going to work and
Yeah.
if we do this, what's going to happen type thing. So I went through all that exercise. I know it doesn't help you tonight. You only
It
have
does.
what
It does.
I'm telling you.
yeah.
But
I've heard that being in safety myself, I understand the radio situation. I've talked to several fire people about these type of things before, so I'm familiar with it. I just don't know, never saw that type of number and that type of, outlay. So,
One of the first questions I asked is how did we go from 173 to 754,000, guys? That was one of my first questions that I had out, and they had to explain that to it. And most of that was, they were going from replacing just the individual hand radios and some minor things to actually putting in a proper system that unifies those three departments.
Again, I will entertain a motion. We got to get to Bob, who we should have taken out of order, more out of order.
poor Bob.
To approve this as written, but now everybody has to decide how they want to vote, I guess, huh?
Second?
Okay, so Carol's motion, Heather's second. All those in favor, let's do a roll call. Dick?
You think it's sweet?
So, okay, McCann guy, sorry.
Okay, I'm going to vote in favor, I'm going to say aye.
I'm going to vote against. Howard D'Amico again.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry against?
Heather Moran against.
So
That's about right. 3-3,
Yeah.
that's okay,
No.
that'll, yeah.
You need a tiebreaker? I'm just willing to help out,
I
but.
think it just goes to, at town,
No, but-
at special
yeah, no.
town meeting, you'll have a 3-3. Somebody will present it. What do we have? Tim, I think, Tim Bonin at annual town meeting, look to create a discussion on the fire position.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna have a discussion here, even if it's 15 people.
Right.
And I think, for me, and to Phil's point, I at least like to ensure that at special town meeting, there'll be a discussion, even if just those folks that choose to show up,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And if we send out a flyer, it's got this in it, and it's got a 3-3 vote, if you don't show up,
Yeah.
that's on you.
No, unfortunately, you guys only had a few minutes
That's
to,
okay.
to discuss this, but
But by-
our committee had the same concerns going into
Yeah.
it. And when we got to the end of it and
Look,
realized, which,
It may well pass.
Yeah.
And that's what you guys are advocating, and I respect that. And I think we want to put on as many protections as we can so that the town folks have had proper notice. This is a big item. And if you're interested in it, if you're concerned about it, come on November 14th. Because it's coming up. It's coming up. Okay?
Yep.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
appreciate it, Howard, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I send Bob up?
Yeah, sure. Unless you want to answer more questions.
No. It's all yours, Howard.
Thank you, Mike.
Very nice.
Thanks.
Which seat?
Come on over here if that works. All right, so,
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment on what you were just discussing?
yeah, we're always open to comments.
Did it?
Please.
Yeah,
I
open
know
meeting.
Matt and I were just finished working on a project, a big project, and one of the questions we were asked was response times from emergency services.
Interesting.
And if you can't communicate, you can't respond. In the area that we're working on is in the three-town area of Sutton, Uxbridge, and Douglas. You have to communicate on this project amongst three towns. We're having trouble communicating within town.
Come see us on November 14th and make that pitch during the open discussion.
I will be there.
And honestly, right, that's really,
That's important, yes.
with all respect to the FinCom folks,
And this is a
we're
development.
just voting on little tiny bits of what we see coming in front of
Yeah.
us. You guys are the guys with the actual facts that people need to hear.
I think for economic development, you need to have a good response.
And public safety.
Public
Yeah,
safety.
I
is
think
paramount.
everybody here is in agreement. I think the big thing for me, the old saying, timing is everything, right?
You know, and when I hear Chief Foley working on this project, he's been gone for 5 years.
Only a small limited amount of people are going to be there to vote on, and then there's going to be questions of why did they push it through?
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
at least we had dissent where maybe if someone picks it up and goes, you might get a couple more bodies.
Right.
That's all it is.
Yep,
I
yep,
fully
yep.
believe in, it should be, but just not enough people, I believe there's going to be at town meeting. That,
Yeah.
Agreed.
Look,
I would-
if there's
I
a
would love to see next
snowstorm,
year's budget
and there are only
and
15 of
make
us,
that-
it's going to be a close 8-7.
Oh, no snow.
Well, that's
Yeah.
early.
Oh,
That's early.
They will, yeah. Oh.
All right, well, I'm still
We can
planning on
build an igloo.
snow off the East Coast on November 3rd, but we won't get into that. All right, go ahead, Article 10.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Finance Committee, Article 10, zoning map amendment, to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning map. There's 5 parcels involved. If you look at that little map, it's kind of tough to read, but it's the crosshatch section, which is the lower right diagonal. That is presently all RA. We're proposing to change it to industrial, to make everything south of Gilboa Street industrial, with the exception of just 2 parcels. There's a house lot in the town-owned property on the corner of North Street in Gilboa. They're still shown as the light color, the whitish color, but everything else will be rezoned to industrial. In RA, you can't have any business, car wash, anything, which just happens to be Article 11. But we have been approached, and there is a car wash company looking at one of those smaller pieces, 45.1. So we're trying to rezone it to be ahead of the curve for economic development. The bigger question is, if you look at Knapp Pond, which is directly across from the Carroll's Mill, that's where the dam is. The Mumford River, which continues up off the chart to the upper right-hand corner, that river is all RA. And if you recall, that's where our million-square-foot warehouse is going in the bridge. We don't want any bridge abutments to be half in RA and half in industrial. That will be an engineering nightmare. So we're proposing to make the entire area industrial.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move the motion that we approve this, or what are the words?
Carol's motion that we recommend it,
All right, I'll second that.
and Phil's second. A roll call, Dick?
I'm all in favor, you bet. Dick Vandenberg.
Hi, Carol Godlinski.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
All right, Bob, you're 1 for 1. Keep going.
Good. Hopefully I'll keep this under an hour.
For the ladies.
Yeah, you.
Just get me involved next time.
There you go.
I'll take care of him.
There you go.
Article 11, zoning bylaw amendment, and this is the car wash I was referring to. We've had interest in car wash on the previous rezone. This is adding to an amendment in the table of use regulations. As you know, if it is not listed in our table of use regulations, it is not allowed, period. Well, there's car wash, we can't fit it in any category, so we're creating a car wash category. It is not allowed in RA, RC1, RC2, village residential, or obviously the state forest. We will have special permit by the planning board in village business and commercial. I might add that this upcoming Wednesday's planning board meeting, the EDC is making a recommendation from the zoning board to change the Y by right to PB, so it'll be PB in all 3. It looks like we'll miss the printing date and the opening of the warrant, so this might be a floor amendment at the special town meeting. I think the planning board will be presenting that, so they'll make that motion to make that amendment to change the Y to a PB.
Permit-based only?
So it'll be a special permit by the planning board in all 3 categories, so they have control over it. We'll also be adding a definition the car wash. A structure containing facilities for washing vehicles with automatic, semi-automatic application of cleaners, brushes, rinse water, and/or heat for drying, including equipment, dryers, vacuuming, air pressure. The et ceteras in there to include vending machines, money machines, token machines, whatever, separate from the structure.
Motion to approve?
I'll second that.
Motion by Phil, seconded by Carol. Roll call, Dick?
Dick Vandenberg, aye.
Carol Garbalinski, aye.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Okay, approved. Recommend.
I like it.
Okay, there you go.
I thank you very
Nice
much.
work.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a black car, I have to approve the car.
Yeah, I've been waiting for this for 6 years, so.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay around for the Cedar Street,
Okay.
and that's further down, too.
Do you want to, hold on, do you want to speak to that one? Which one is that?
No, it's not mine, it's not mine.
Okay, do you want to speak?
I live on Cedar Street, that's why I'm just
Well,
saying.
why don't we, I'll entertain a motion to take Article 9 out of order.
You seconded, Phil Landry seconded.
I need a motion.
Oh, I'll take a motion for taking number 9 out of order then.
I'll second that.
Motion finally by Phil, seconded by Carol.
You caught me off guard. I was ready to go to 13 and 12 and.
Roll call,
you know.
Dick, to just take Article 9.
Aye.
Carol Garbalinski, aye.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Okay, so let's go to Article 9. Does anyone want to speak on Article 9?
This is
Bob.
Bill Conduct on Zoom.
What's,
Bill Conduct on engineer.
Bill?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Nice,
That's you, Bill.
finally. I assume that's Cedar Street you're looking at?
It is.
Okay. You may recall at the last town meeting, we had a draft article which was prepared with values from our assessor's office. And remarkably, they did an incredible job because we're getting the appraisal values in that are coming in very close to what our assessor's office had originally calculated. Now, the statute requires that we hire an appraiser to determine the values for either permanent or temporary takings. And as you know, these takings are associated with the construction and repair of the Cedar Street Bridge. So we did hire the Foster Company, and they did an appraisal. We just got that appraisal in today, so we haven't gone through it thoroughly, but I can tell you their total value is $910 for this article. The assessor's office had previously calculated $1,100, so they were spot on. And their breakdown of values was very close to what the appraisers ultimately came up with. So the numbers you're looking at in the article before you in the prepared warrant were conservative numbers. As you know, we can go down on town meeting floor because it's within the scope of the article. We can't go up. So at the time we prepared the language here, we carried larger numbers, conservative numbers. We will make a motion to amend the numbers on the floor of town meeting to meet the appraisal values. But at this point, the article on the printed warrant that you have before you is a total of $6,000.
Anyone else like to
Wait,
speak on the article?
$6,000, where am I missing that?
It's 9. The draft I have.
1,100. That's what I see, is 1,100, and then the Foster Company came out with $910 or thereabouts, you're saying?
Hold on. We're on Article 9.
Yeah, I see 1,100.
You said the Foster Company came up with an estimate of around $910, is that right?
This one says that, and this one says
That is
that.
correct.
Right, so the difference is a couple $100 here we're talking about, and you guys may adjust that down during the meeting, but basically that's what you're paying these people for the little plot parts of land.
That's correct.
Okay. And let me just ask, for the heck of it, how much did the appraisals cost?
More than what we're going to be paying out.
You guys might want to think of an appraisal waiver form.
No, statutory. Anyone else want to speak on the article?
Yeah.
Howard?
Yes.
Howard,
Dick?
I have a question for Bill.
Yeah?
So Bill, is this going to be the end of the Cedar Street drama, so to speak?
Hopefully, yes.
Okay.
Obviously, still, after we get the taking, if the taking goes through with town meeting, and we don't get protests and things move according to plan, we're going to go out to bid this spring and award the contract and hopefully construct it before the end of next year.
Thanks.
Yeah, I have
All right,
a
thank you.
question. Why are we putting up a new bridge? Why are we putting a new bridge there?
So the bridge that we had repaired temporarily was just that. It was, you might recall, Carol, and
Yeah.
Bob's still there. Bob can attest to this. We had been shut down for a period of time.
Oh, I remember.
Years ago, and Mass DOT wouldn't allow passing over the bridge because of the condition of the bridge.
Right.
So in order to expedite and control the cost of the repair, our highway department made the repair. We paid for some engineering. We got free materials to construct the temporary bridge. And currently, what's out there now is a temporary fix.
Oh, okay. Because it's working pretty good.
Temporary one lane.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Well, I think it works fantastic.
I think it's narrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did qualify under this program for a $500,000 grant from the state to get this work done.
Right, but then we have to match that, right?
No, we don't have to match.
We don't have to bring up any money to the table?
We're going to have to supplement the
Yeah.
funds because it'll probably be in the order of $750, I'm guessing. But it's not a match.
No, it's supplemented with Chapter 90.
Chapter 90 funds, yeah.
And if, I frankly feel like if we can get this out to bid sooner rather than later, we are going to do well. Everybody's hungry
Yeah,
right now,
sure.
looking for work. I don't really want to wait till the spring
Yeah.
unless Bill tells me I can first.
Make a motion to approve as written. Number 9,
I'll
Cedar
second
Street
that.
taken.
I'll second that.
Phil's motion, Carol second. All those in favor? Dick? Well, I'm sorry, let's go through a roll call. Dick?
Carol Gogolinski, aye.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Bob, anything
Thank
from
you. No, I'm just going to sit in the back,
All
fall
right, there you
asleep.
go. There you go.
Thank you.
Got a lot.
Bill, while we've got you here, have you got more articles on here to discuss?
I don't believe so. I think that was it for me.
Okay.
No, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
Oh, it says no.
Here's Article 12.
Stormwater bill,
Which one is 12?
$35,000 for your phase 2.
Oh, okay, stormwater.
Hold on. Any others,
Talked
Bill?
about this one. Didn't we?
Just
No,
the.
informally.
NIPD's stormwater program. So you may recall, this has kind of been an ongoing expense. The federal government under the Clean Water Act and the state government through the DEP and EPA have mandatory thresholds and requirements that we have to meet as part of our MS4, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System program. And in order to do that, it involves mapping, documenting the quality of water in our system, identifying issues, training our highway department, monitoring the scope of work and preparing operations and maintenance plans. So this has been going on for a few years now. We're getting to a point where the highway guys are doing a phenomenal job. We're at the point where we're going to get trained next year under the proposed scope. And unfortunately, there's an expense to it. And this is to have our consultant assist us and guide us through the process.
Does this include the permitting fees or anything? Do you already have an existing fee, permit for this system?
So there's no fee with the permit. This permit is kind of a self-issuing permit that the DEP will give you if you file your annual report. So we've been filing annual reports for probably, I'm guessing, about 10 years now.
Okay, all right.
It's only become more complicated over the last few years, and thresholds are a little more detailed because the state and federal requirements have triggered a more aggressive approach.
Yeah.
We kind of have taken historically we'll meet the minimum standards and we'll kind of do what we need to do to kind of get by with the straight face, pass the straight face test. Now it's at a point where we need to produce documents demonstrating that we are compliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I will entertain a motion to recommend approval of Article 12.
I recommend approval for Article 12.
I'll second it.
Phil, that was a motion.
Yes, motion to recommend approval of Article 12. That's
And
right,
Carol
as
seconded.
written.
Roll call, Dick?
Is that?
Dick Vandenberg, aye.
Carol Bobolinski, aye.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Okay, Article 12.
I have a lot of carbon monoxide with this, the mask thing. I'm
Well, I don't know what you're doing over there.
Doing
You're
it.
having fun, apparently.
I'm struggling over here. I'm like, I don't
I don't know
even
what
know
you're
what.
breathing in.
I don't know what's going on.
Bill, any other
What
articles?
town am I in?
Gene? No, I think that's it. I don't
Hold on, hold on.
Wait, you're good, have a good night, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
Good night.
Good stuff.
Okay, so why don't we head back to Article 4? Who would like to speak on Article 4, Matthew? Gene?
Going down.
No, really. Some time ago, the town adopted an OPEB trust, which would be a repository for funds for other post-employment benefits. It's really your health insurance obligation beyond their retirement. And I wasn't here, so I don't know for sure, but my understanding from the town treasurer is that the trust document was drawn up, but was not fully executed.
The document.
Because
Okay.
there would be a trust document that would
Yep.
name the terms and conditions of the trust.
This is just a legal
It's a legal
wrap-up,
thing because,
correct?
what do they call it? Municipal Modernization Act passed while this was going on, so it changed the way you would do the OPEB trust. So you no longer really have a valid approval. You have to re-adopt it, and then
Can I get you off for a minute? Sandy, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Yeah. So
I would like to make,
this doesn't affect money at all?
No.
Basically.
I would like to make a motion to approve Article 4.
Seconded? Heather?
Second.
Go ahead, there you go.
Motion made and seconded. Let's do a roll call vote. Dick?
Dick Vandenberg, aye.
Carol Bobolinski, aye.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
I wasn't going to wait for Phil to make a motion.
Yeah, it could have been a little long, a little drawn out.
let the verbosity technique work on that.
I'm good at
Working
hits.
on it, he's working on it.
Yeah.
Yep. The maths. All right, let's go to Article 5,
Can I provide a quick explanation on 5 and 6?
if you would please. How about one at a time?
Sure. Article 5,
Yeah.
as part of the free cash calculation, I look at where the funds are closing from, 27,000 closed from the retiree portion of the health insurance benefits. And our typical practice is we take the money that closed from into free cash and transfer it into the OPEB trust as part of our special time meeting in the fall.
Okay,
I'll make a motion that we recommend Article 5.
Second.
Carol's motion, Sandy's second. Any discussion? Dick, roll call.
Dick Vandenberg, aye.
Carol Godowinski, aye.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Okay, let's go to Article 6, if you would, Jean, just briefly.
Again, as a result of the analysis of the close to free cash, $10,000 was received as part of a hosting agreement from Cannabis. The language said that it would be used towards the purchase of an ambulance. There's no other way to kind of reserve this money without transferring it to stabilization. So that's what we're doing. We're, again, it did close the free cash, and we're just moving it to stabilization to honor the agreement.
Heather?
I make a motion to approve Article 6 as written.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Dick? A motion
Dick
to
Van-
recommend.
Dick Vandenberg, aye.
Carol Godowinski, aye.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
I'm sorry, I missed the first and second on that.
So the first was Heather, the second was Sandy, and it was a motion to recommend.
Okay, thank you.
Article 7, would anyone like to speak to Article 7?
I won't speak to it, but I acknowledge that we have to do it.
Well, let's do it this way for formality. Can somebody report the results of the 13 town meetings with regard to this item?
It is my understanding 12 of the 13 have approved this.
Yep.
Okay. And is it your further understanding that given that, we're contractually obligated to pay our apportionate share or our assigned share?
That's correct.
And Matt, would you agree with that?
Unfortunately.
Okay.
I make a motion to recommend Article 7.
Carol's motion,
Second.
Heather's second. Let's do a roll call. Dick?
Dick Vandenberg, aye.
Carol Godowinski, aye.
Howard D'Amico, I'll abstain.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Okay. So let's go to, I think we're up to 13. Matthew, that one's going to fall to you. What do you
Local
have?
adoption, we're asking town meeting to adopt the state statute to form a commission on disabilities, which would provide advice on various construction projects around town for accessibility and user-friendliness for the community.
A town commission?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that something we have to do?
If we want to win grants, we need to do this. And that's what we've been told. We've narrowly missed on the library ADA project, and we narrowly missed an ADA grant for the senior center, adult social center, which was a more grandiose project than the floors. It was the ramp and all. We barely missed both of those because we don't get any points. We don't have the commission.
Really?
What would they
I
do?
personally want to say that we don't want to just do this to get points. It helps.
Yeah, sure.
But the reality is, when you're designing things for people who have different challenges, you should hear from them. They should have the opportunity to make that presentation. So the members of this commission have to be members of the disability community. It's not just regular people imagining they think they know what those people need. And it's, so that's why you get points for it, because you
Sure.
really should be doing it.
Doesn't the ADA require it already? I mean, it's a legal requirement, isn't it, for
Well,
construction projects, renovations, et cetera?
Yeah, so our building official is our ADA compliance officer, and he goes through and reviews all of this. So we check all the boxes. We have the compliance officer, we have a plan, we've been through all of the
Right.
buildings.
Yeah.
We have check marks. But this is the additional step of, going back to Howard's earlier point, general point about democracy, is to include people in the decision-making. So that if we've missed something, or strict compliance isn't actually going to make it as user-friendly as it could be, then we make sure we hear from people who use it.
This is a non-paid position commission.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, yeah, it's all good.
Carol?
Yeah, I just wonder, I just hope this doesn't go into like single-family housing. They start telling you they have to make everything handicap compliant on a single-family house, and start throwing the price up again more.
It's not a lawmaking body or by any means, it's just a community input body, right?
Yep. I make a motion,
Yeah,
shall I make a motion to approve Article 13 as written?
yeah. I'll second that.
Okay, Sandy's motion, Phil's second. Any other discussion, Carol?
Nope.
Okay. Dick?
Dick Vandenberg, aye.
Carol Gogolinski, aye.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
All right. Go to Article 14. I think we've had some discussion on this already. Does anyone need further discussion?
Now I'll make a motion that we approve Article 14.
Carol's motion.
Second.
Dick? Heather, yeah, you sure? Yeah.
Or you can do Dick.
We'll get him in later. We got one more. It's tough from the outside seats, isn't it? We'll get you.
Did we get a second?
Heather's second.
Okay, Dick Vandenberg, aye.
Carol?
Oh, Carol Gogolinski, aye.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Okay, and 15. Matt, could you walk through this one just quickly,
I
briefly?
will. At September town meeting, town meeting approved the assistant chief position in the fire department on the basis of putting it into the comp table at M4, management level 4. But if we're going to amend the bylaw to give that person a contract that doesn't need to be there, he can go back to being a call title and compensated at the call. The position may or may not be filled, but it'd be back to public safety 5, which is a part-time, rate. So we had Mr. Campo was the assistant chief. He's retired. So I just want to get it out of the full-time compensation, put it back on part-time, leave it there. And then for economic development project coordinator, we talked about the money. Now this is the position. MS, is, you don't see very often, that's miscellaneous.
Okay.
So that sets the hourly rate for that person.
Okay, Dick?
Dick Vandenberg, aye.
No, Dick, would you like to make a motion to recommend Article 15?
I'm happy to make that motion, you bet.
Excellent, Dick, thank you. Anyone else, second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Phil, you ready? There you go.
Yep, I'm
All
here.
right, let's do a
Second.
roll call vote. Dick?
Yeah, Dick Vandenberg, aye. Sorry about that.
That's okay, good. Yep.
Carol Gogolinski, aye.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Okay, so have we got anything left on the special town meeting? Okay. Jean has suggested that because we didn't have it on the agenda posted for the previous meeting, that we really need to redo or do our reorganization, correct, Jean?
That's correct.
Okay, so let's see if anyone would like to nominate Dick Vandenberg to be our vice chairman. Any recommendations?
Recommendation to nominate Dick Vandenberg as the vice chair of the finance committee.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call?
Oh,
Okay, Dick?
Yeah, aye, I guess.
Carol Gogolinski, aye.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
I'll turn the floor over to Jean.
Accept nominations for chair of the finance committee.
I nominate Howard D'Amico as chair of the finance committee.
Carol,
I'll second it.
that was Bill.
Yeah.
All
I
in favor?
really should have hit the nod it quickly.
Do we get to do a roll call, right?
Yes.
Sure.
Dick?
Dick Vandenberg, aye.
Carol Gogolinski, aye.
Howard D'Amico, aye.
Sandy Kuiper's aye.
Phil Landry, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
I should have asked, does anybody else have any other nominations?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Nice have it.
I do.
Maybe that was on purpose.
Yeah. Okay, let's skip then approve free meeting minutes since you didn't ask for any nominations in time. And let's go to review free cash. Apparently, we have $2.7 million.
And I will give a longer explanation if you think that's a lot of money without hearing the explanation.
That's where we are.
I would ask actually for a little bit of an explanation, please. Yep.
So if you look at the expenditures and revenues highlight, this is not meant to add up for all those accounting people like yourself. but merely to provide highlights. So free cash is made of a couple of components. One, as I said, it is made up of the ending balance of last year, the free cash that you hadn't spent in the previous fiscal year. That's your starting balance. And then you add to that the variance between the estimated receipts and the actual receipts, the miscellaneous revenue that we do not budget. We do not budget a number for miscellaneous revenue. Any turnbacks. There are also things that hit free cash that are not listed on here. That's why I'm saying you can't just add down to get to that 2.725870 number. But the estimated local receipt variance was $536,566.90. The miscellaneous revenue that we do not budget was $69,799.56. Most of that was due to an IOD with the fire department, where the insurance claim actually comes to the town as part of miscellaneous revenue. We expended the salary out of the appropriate budget. The unencumbered, unexpended appropriation was $824,181. I did list some of the big departments that closed. I would draw attention to the school transportation. Remember, we did not pay out 100% of that. There was a negotiation due to COVID, so we typically do not have a closeout from school transportation other than the sped department, but that was $338,474. The 24/7 typically.
Go ahead.
Oh, you were raising your hand.
Phil and I each have a hold. We've got questions for you later.
Okay.
Yep.
School choice out came in higher than we had budgeted, and we don't receive that number until June of the fiscal year, so that's an unbudgeted piece. That was a hit to free cash of $27,521. Again, we did not spend $1,410,157 of last year's free cash, so that is part of that $2,725,870, and that's very quick.
Bill?
Yeah, so just one quick question. Could you explain the $69,799 MISC revenue again? You said IOD?
Oh, injured on duty, I'm sorry.
Say again?
Injured on duty.
Okay. So we collect money from that?
We receive money from the insurance company, but the payroll is paid out of the fire or ambulance department. So you can't net the two. You cannot treat an expenditure account like a revolving account. So I can't take the insurance money and put it back into the departmental budget. So we pay it out of the departmental budget, and the revenue comes into miscellaneous revenue. So that's one piece of miscellaneous revenue.
Okay. So the effect is, it is actually net money coming in that we wouldn't have had before?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
The $10,000 from the host agreement is part of that $69,000. I don't know if I have.
Host.
I do an analysis of miscellaneous revenue, but I don't have it with me.
The second quick question would be the state assessment for school choice out. How many students does that represent? And those are extra students than the ones we budgeted that were leaving the school, Douglas schools?
A school choice assessment. I don't know the number of students, but we receive a school choice assessment as part of our cherry sheet. The state firms that up in June, or they do an analysis. In June, we are either charged with the difference, or they don't take as much out of our cherry sheet money. So there's a reconciliation done every June, and unfortunately this year the number of students was higher than the assessment estimate.
Okay, so that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Gina, I had a question. You had a number in front of it, 384,000 and change for a change based on the busing, correct?
$338,474.86.
And is that net to the good, net to us? And that's for which fiscal year, 20 or 21?
That was for 20, so that was the money that we did not spend that we budgeted in FY20. That closed into free cash.
Can you give me that number again?
It's actually on your free cash analysis sheet.
338,474.86, if you really want to be exact.
So if I may, and I know it's late, bear with me, I've got my soapbox. Are the kids doing sports programs this year? Do we know?
In an unofficial capacity, yes, the kids at the school are doing sports.
But there are no fees this year?
There are fees.
There are fees.
There are fees.
What are those fees? Do we know?
Off the top of my head, I don't recall it off the top of my head. It didn't increase from what it was last year, though.
I think they're two, I want to say 200 a person.
220, I think.
I guess I'll tell you in a little bit when we I get my assessment.
So,
I thought it was 200, but maybe past year it's been 300.
I think it's 150, because I just signed a warrant where somebody double fees, and we had to pay them back, and it was $150.
which is lower than
But
it's
it might be
been,
that
correct?
specific thing that that person was doing.
If you can,
I don't recall the exact number.
Yeah.
It's one.
Last year's was 200, I believe. I paid a couple of them, so.
And do we have a ballpark, same number of kids participating this year that we would have had last year? Or is the number of participants down due to COVID?
I think you want to have the athletic director from the school and then have that discussion.
So we're on
There's a lot of regulations in place for the different school sports that are going to take place as you go through.
Yeah. So where I would be headed is the concept of trying to still find a way amongst all this lovely, great budget news tonight and $684,000 available. And in a time where lots of our folks are out of work, a little tighter for cash, kids trying to participate in sports programs is one of the few outlets. I'd really like to be able to find a way to funnel some of that money in a small amount back to the parents, back to the families, either who are paying fees or to help them pay fees that they couldn't otherwise pay to get kids to participate. I don't know the vehicle at the moment. Obviously, we just talked about, had a long discussion about trying to get something into special town meeting. So maybe something that's got to be addressed for May's town meeting to be retroactive, which makes it almost immaterial because you couldn't put the money up in the first place. But I'd really like to start seeing a more diligent effort by the town to address those fees that I sincerely think are a burden to a lot of families in town. And, you know, nobody wants to see a few kids not be able to participate because folks are making tough decisions and can't afford it right now. And if we've got 2.7 million in free cash, I've been harping on this issue 5 or 6 years, each year when we had 1.4 in free cash or we had budget deficits, and we now have a little bit more flush cash, where I said earlier, you know, I don't want to go out and spend all the money that we just approved for, you know, an override, but even dropping fees $25 or $50 across the board, I think helps people. That's something I'd like this committee maybe in the spring, and I'd like whatever organizations have to be aware of that, to be aware that we'll be looking to do some of that. And I understand from my first year that we can't determine in a budget of the school committee or the schools how they spend it, but I sure would like to see the school budget, with all respect to increases for teachers and all of those things too, I'd like to see some effort made to give parents in town a little bit of a break so these kids can participate and it won't be tough decision-making for the parents.
Right. It's just to make sure that the school people understand, anybody who wants to participate will participate. Between the school boosters and the athletic director, they give scholarships if anybody has any hardships or anything. So I mean, it's good from that standpoint, but I do agree with what you're saying from a standpoint of just getting rid of fees if you can. I think that's a great gesture for a lot of people that right now don't want to see salt in the wound, if you will, to pay that.
I think getting rid of fees is hard. The math adds up quickly, surprisingly, but the ability,
Sure.
particularly where we've got all these other discussions, and a $600,000 line item came up tonight, there was strong advocacy for covering it. The ability with, I can't imagine we've got 1,000 kids participating if you take the multiple, terms, multiple seasons, 500 kids. What's, again, the math lines up quickly. You take 500 kids at the $100 reduction each, and it's $50,000. It's a real number. But it seems to me there's something in there that can be done to give parents a little bit of a break during, well, the town's done well, the town folks, some of them maybe haven't done as well.
Yeah, and your point's perfect. I was just making sure that people knew the school is very, considerate about those things, and the AD and the sports boosters do a lot of good stuff, so.
Fair enough. Anything else about free cash? Thank you, folks. That's,
If anybody has any questions after reviewing this, I'm happy to answer it. I know I went through it very quickly, because Howard only gives me 5 minutes to speak.
because
Oh! Throwing it back.
Can I just bring to your attention, Mr. Chairman, is that this certification also included retained earnings in the water sewer fund and the transfer station fund. Those are enterprise funds. And it is a matter of some concern that reliance upon retained earnings for operations continues in both of those departments. While water sewer, I believe, is growing this account, their reliance on it is still growing. It's a mathematical quandary how they managed to do this. But the transfer station is a steady deterioration. And the reason for that is the world no longer wants our dirty recyclables. China at one time wanted all this stuff and we paid us for it. Now the Chinese market is dried up. A lot of what you think you're recycling is going to a landfill and being invested. At the same time, the cost of hauling this stuff away from the transfer station has steadily increased. Contract renewal was aggressive. The cost structure for hauling is tied to workers' comp and other things. This is not a sustainable pattern for the transfer station. So at some point, there needs to be some conversation in public. I think FinCom is the appropriate place. Well, exactly what are you going to do? Are you going to increase the sticker price? How are you going to make this work? Maybe the solution is putting solar on the top of the landfill and taking the proceeds from it. There's got to be some thought, though, because this will not last forever.
who can bring that up to us? I assume we've got to start meeting again already in December or January for next cycle. Matthew, is that something you want to find a way to get before us?
Well, I'll tell you, in the 3 years I've been here, I think I remember Bob Sullivan coming to FinCom once.
He typically comes every year. Last year.
It's usually very brief because people don't engage.
Well, why don't we ensure that he gets on the schedule early? And we have, if you can be here that evening to prompt us again. That's a very fair topic. I appreciate the analysis.
And
and
this appears to be part of this year, but it's because DOR is no longer allowing me to separate for retained earnings perspective, the water sewer development, the debt, and what I considered unreserved. So they're actually grouping a bunch of things that I used to reserve out before. So that's why this year is a little higher than it would have been presented to you in the certification from DOR. But we can ask, Bob typically comes in March, we can ask him to come earlier in the budget process.
Would you be prepared to work on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into a great deal of depth.
Sure,
I think
but bring it
I'll
up.
give you some questions.
Bring it back up. Sure, that'd be great. A couple of quick things before we get to minutes approval. So let's talk about a couple of meetings coming up. First, let's discuss the special town meeting, our meeting. Well, do we really need a meeting before the special town meeting at this point?
I think we took care of everything.
Yeah, I think we're cleaned up, aren't we?
Okay. Dean?
I will post the meeting at the same time as town meetings in case you need to vote on anything.
Okay? And you'll send me an email with exactly what I want to tell the town?
Sure.
Perfect. And that's on tape. And how about why don't we talk about then now a meeting in December to get our feet under us for the next fiscal year?
Okay.
So we can do somewhere about December 8th?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Dick, you still there? Dick?
Oh.
Did Dick fall under his chair?
Just his lights there.
There he is.
Dick,
And he's
Dick
muted.
passed out. Yep.
Dick, you went all Blair Witch on us.
Yeah.
You know, with this COVID thing kind of raising its ugly head again, can we do like Dick's doing too?
Oh, of course, always, always. All of these are optional, in person or Zoom. Absolutely, Carol.
I just love wearing a mask.
So let's plan on December 8th. I'm moving on at 7. All right.
What is the town meeting? It's
November 14th, again, a Saturday. Is it 10 or 10:30?
10:30.
10:30. Okay.
Where you,
I'm going to be there at like 8 o'clock starting a bonfire.
The town meeting, the FinCom meeting for 10:30 at the field.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Gene.
Say that part again? I missed.
FinCom will effectively meet at the special.
At the field.
Right.
Okay, sorry.
because if we happen to have something we couldn't meet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Something that
But
was out.
we can.
All right, do folks have the minutes available for October 13? And welcome to Ashley, our new minute taker.
Make a motion to accept the minutes from October 13.
Sandy's motion,
Second.
Phil's second. All those in favor? I don't think we need a roll call on that. Aye, and opposed? Dick, you want to make one more motion, buddy?
I move that we adjourn.
I'm sorry, Matt. I'm really sorry. That's so terrible. Hold on, Dick.
That has an official comment. We can't.
Just asking the chairman's indulgence and through him to his committee, that in your explanation of your 3-3 vote, would you be open to saying, while not opposed to the substance of the request, the committee has concerns about the timing of the request? I don't want to signal to the public that you're opposed to the project, if you're not. You see where I'm going with this? It makes it harder to eventually get something.
When I draft my notes for this, I will put something in to directly address that. I think that's a reasonable request. And I think that is exactly what we're trying to convey.
Right.
That we
Yeah.
didn't really vote. Some of us might have voted on its substance, but my perception was that 3 negative votes were primarily based on timing and forum rather than the substance.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay? Yes. Anything else, Matt? You sure? Okay. Dick, a motion?
It's already out there.
I'll second it.
There you
All
go.
those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
Yay.
Thank you all.
There it is.
Longer meeting tonight.